After the zombie apocalypse broke out, I survived in a cave. After receiving a message from my old class monitor, whom I hadn't spoken to in ages, I knew the end of the world was coming. I couldn't save it, and time certainly wasn't going to be the savior. I just wanted to hoard enough food and keep my only remaining family safe. My name is Sue Man. I'd been working for less than 2 years since graduation. One day, I worked overtime until around 10 p.m. as usual, barely catching the last subway back to my apartment. Right after I showered, I saw a text message on my phone. It was from my high school class monitor. Hurry, buy enough food. Hide. That short message made me realize something was wrong. Without any hesitation, I immediately called him back. As soon as it rang, he picked up right away. Before I could even ask, his anxious, terrified voice came through. Hurry up and buy food.
Hide.
Buy as much as you can. What's going on? Aren't you abroad? I can't explain right now. Just listen to me. He didn't finish, but it made me panic. I was just an ordinary employee, making 3 or 4,000 a month. How could I afford all that food? I pulled together all the money on my phone.
It was only 20,000 yuan.
So I went to an online loan app and maxed out my credit line. 50,000 should be enough, right? I asked my manager for time off that very night, packed my things, and drove my old 4-wheel EV back to my hometown. Only after I got home did I see the class monitor had sent several more messages. A virus leaked over here. 3 cities have already fallen. It'll spread back home in a month at the earliest. Hurry up and hide. And whatever you do, don't tell anyone. That was followed by a few videos. They showed people with missing limbs. They weren't human anymore. They were zombies. Terrified, I sat in my car for about 10 minutes to process it, before calling my elderly mother to open the gate for me. My house is in the countryside, and it's 20 or 30 years old. Forget zombies. The walls felt like they'd collapse in a strong wind. My family was poor. Where could I hide with my mom? That became my biggest worry. At first, I thought 50,000 was enough. But after seeing the videos, let alone 50,000, even 500,000 wouldn't be enough. Man, it's so late. Why don't you get some sleep? My mother's gentle voice temporarily soothed my fear. My father resented me for being a girl. When I was just a month old, he abandoned us. So my mom and I only had each other all these years. I went back to my room, only after seeing the living room lights go out through the crack in the door. Did I pull out my phone, determined to speed up my prep? To save money, I enabled buy now, pay later on an e-commerce app. I bought tons of rice, noodles, grains, and oil. I split the orders across several stores, so I wouldn't be recognized. And since the delivery station was in town, it kept people from coming directly to my house and snooping on my supplies. Next, I bought disposable underwear, sanitary pads, toiletries, skincare products, soap, laundry detergent, hand sanitizer, body wash, shampoo, conditioner, lip balm, and several basins, from small ones for washing vegetables to large ones for bathing. Then I went to an electronics flagship store and bought 50 power banks, around 10 phones, 10 tablets, and a massive capacity USB drive. Of course, I bought all of this using buy now, pay later. I didn't actually have the money for all this. I needed that 50,000 for other things. After thinking it over, I decided to buy more. I reopened the app for 4.5-liter bottled water and picked the cheapest brand. I messaged the seller, claiming I was opening a village grocery store. I bought 100 cases and they gave me 3 free. There were 4 bottles per case. 412 bottles should be enough. Seeing the successful order confirmation, I finally locked my phone and went to sleep. After all, I had to find a place to stay come morning. I woke up at the crack of dawn. I had only slept 4 or 5 hours, yet I felt so awake. I drove around the village and unwittingly drove into the mountains. The mountains were foggy in the morning. The dense trees made it a great place to hide from people and zombies. As I was driving home, I ran into my mom going to work in the fields. She was carrying a hoe. Seeing her frail frame broke my heart. If the zombie outbreak really happened, how could someone so frail escape? What are you doing up in the mountains so early? Go back and get some more sleep. Mothers always worry about their children. And I felt exactly the same. I parked the car on the side of the road, got out, and joined her in the field. At first she refused. I used to work with you like this every day. Why stop asking me just because I graduated? I'm coming with you no matter what. I took the fertilizer from her hands and walked up with her. Working was just an excuse. Finding a shelter was my real goal. There was only one plot of land at the top of the mountain, and it was ours. I remembered working up here with my mom as a kid. There was a cave not too far away. It wasn't big, but it was more than enough for 2 people. Could it serve as a shelter for us? The mountain was covered in trees, with only one plot of land at the peak. Mom and I were outsiders. So when land was assigned, they naturally gave us the farthest, hardest to reach plot. Because of that, no one was likely to find this cave. My mom wouldn't let me do the hard labor. So just like old times, I used picking wild berries as an excuse to go find the cave. Maybe because it had been so long. It took me a while to find the entrance. Inside, it was completely empty. The ground was fairly level. Living here wouldn't be too bad. One side of the cave connected to another cave, which opened up to a cliff face. Below the cliff was the highway. This would be perfect for keeping an eye on the outside world. The other side had a natural waterfall. I just need some large water pipes set up underneath it, and our daily water supply would be sorted. I used my phone to record the cave's layout, planning to map out the renovations when I got home. After returning home, I anxiously texted my class monitor to ask what his situation was, if he was in danger, and if he could make it back. But there was no reply. That afternoon, while my mom was resting at home, I ran into town and bought 5 propane tanks, 2 gas stoves, solar panels, and multiple storage batteries. The entrance to the cave was near the top of the mountain. I could drive the car up there. I parked on the dirt road next to the cave and used all my strength to haul all the propane tanks inside. It was almost dinner time when I got home. Tomorrow I plan to secretly buy some bricks, sand, and cement to seal up the extra openings in the cave. 3 days later, my packages started arriving one by one. I go out every afternoon. Thankfully, it was summer, so I had an excuse to wear a sun mask when picking them up. I have 2 phone numbers. When placing the orders, I used both of them. I also used a delivery address in the neighboring town. Even though it was further away, the delivery station boss wouldn't get suspicious. He just asked curiously what I was buying so much of, but I pretended to be mute, so he stopped asking. I secretly transported everything to the cave. Gradually, the space inside started filling up. I had set up the solar panels and water pipes myself. I also prepped 7 or 8 extra pipes, in case the outside ones failed. What if they fell, and I didn't have spares? Time was running out. I kept sending messages to my class monitor, but he never replied again. I didn't want to admit it, but I figured he was probably dead. After moving all the packages, I bought 2 folding beds in town, along with plenty of blankets and curtains. That way, I could partition off the sleeping area for Mom and me. I spent a whole day buying various medicines and also got some fake grass to hang over the cave entrance and camouflage it better. I bought multiple self-defense stun guns too. I tried to buy long machetes, but gave up when I couldn't find any. I did buy plenty of thumbtacks and long nails though. Even with a great hiding spot, I still needed to be ready for any unexpected situations. Passing by a seed shop, I bought various vegetable and fruit seeds. I had already prepped the soil for planting in the cave. I went through all the markets and bought over a dozen king quails, so we wouldn't lack meat and eggs. Finally, I bought a few water filters
And lots of filter pads.
There was spring water on the mountain, but just to be safe, it was better to filter it before using. Once everything was moved to the cave, I sat in the car and scrolled through my phone. Suddenly, a trending news story terrified me. Rabies patient bites passenger on subway. I clicked the video. The attacker's eyes were completely white. Even though he was pinned down by several men, he was still chewing on the flesh he'd torn off. It hadn't even been half a month, and it had already spread to our country. Panicking, I rushed home to pack. Seeing me packing, my mom thought I was leaving. She grabbed my hand, looking heartbroken. Man, are you going back to work? Mom, hurry up and grab your important things. Everything important, grab it now. She was stunned by my words. Confused, she tried to ask another question, but I cut her off. Mom, hurry. I'll explain later. Hearing my tone, she obediently went back to her room to pack. An hour later, I loaded 3 fully packed suitcases into the car and drove my mom out of the village. Going into the mountains confused her even more. She wanted to ask, but was afraid I'd snap at her again. About 10 minutes later, the car stopped at the cave entrance. When I brought her inside the cave, she stared blankly at all the supplies. Man, what are you doing? I sat her down and crouched in front of her. Mom, wait here for me. I'll deal with the car and come right back. I'll explain everything when I return, okay? I knew she had a million questions, but if I didn't hide the car, we'd easily be found. After making her promise repeatedly not to leave the cave, I quickly drove the car down to the bridge at the village entrance. I left it unlocked with the keys inside. I purposefully left some water and ration bars, and put 3 knives in the back seat. They were small, but good enough for self-defense. If someone needed them, maybe it could save their life. Carrying a large box of thumbtacks, I started the 20-minute walk back to the cave. As soon as I entered the woods, I scattered tacks along the path. I had covered about 50 meters when I heard a scream from one of the village houses. It was a piercing shriek. My heart skipped a beat. I whipped my head around. In the distance, I saw some older woman being tackled and bitten on the neck. Under the streetlights, I could faintly see blood spraying. I picked up my pace, tossing the tacks faster. But terror took over. I just stuffed the tacks away, walked briskly for a few steps, then broke into a dead sprint. When I reached the cave, I saw Mom waiting for me at the entrance. I hurriedly pulled her inside. I had already gathered a pile of rocks. I quickly stacked them one by one, building a wall to block the cave opening. Mom watched me with deep concern.
Mom,
The zombies are here. She didn't know what a zombie was. She just asked who had been screaming down in the village, and what had happened. After rapidly sealing the entrance, I did a perimeter check. It was too rushed. Not even one water bucket was full yet. Once I was sure we were secure, I explained everything to my mother. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock, then to pure fear. Afraid she wouldn't believe me,
I
showed her the videos before from the
they
class
even
monitor. Finished. She pushed my hand away. Stop. That's terrifying, Mom. We have to hide here and wait for the government to save us. Otherwise, we'll end up just like those things. She nodded. She finally understood why I had been so fierce earlier. Because time was running out, and we had to survive. Mom's adaptability was better than mine. A few minutes later, she actually got up to inspect my stockpile. I didn't stay idle either. Grabbing my binoculars, I observed the situation outside. Traffic on the highway was running normally, though there were several times more cars than usual. I could occasionally hear honking. It seemed there were only isolated cases so far, and it hadn't become a total collapse yet. Just as I was about to lower the binoculars, a massive crash made me snap them right back up. At a tunnel exit on the highway, a large truck had plowed straight into 4 or 5 cars. Smoke was billowing. I couldn't see clearly if the people there were normal. People got out of the cars. They covered their noses and mouths with their clothes and moved to the side of the road. Just as I was relieved they were normal, the driver of the large truck fell right out of the cab. The next second, he stood up in a bizarre, unnatural way. Half his neck was torn open, yet he was still moving. With his head dangling, he lunged without warning at the people standing by the road. It was a zombie. The truck driver was already infected. I watched him pounce on the bystanders. He tackled a woman to the ground, opening his jaws. He bit fiercely into her arm, then her neck, her face, her stomach. I couldn't stomach the gore. The videos from my monitor had the buffer of a screen, but I was seeing this with my own eyes. Mom worriedly came over and rubbed my back. Man, I looked at the supplies. We have enough to eat for 2 years. Stop looking at that. It's too scary. Mom, I'm scared someone will find us. Mom gave me a reassuring look. No one knows about this place. Since this plot was assigned to us, no one else has ever come up here. That road was only built by the village chief to sell lumber, and it doesn't even reach the peak. It's obvious they don't know about it. Her words put my mind at ease. I had strung fairy lights around the cave. They were the kind that run on batteries and last a long time. I had bought over 2,000 yuan worth of lights and more than 500 batteries. Though Mom and I weren't afraid of the dark, it wouldn't do to have no light at all. We hadn't eaten dinner yet. Mom took out a piece of cured meat, found some vegetables, and made a simple meat and soup dish. During the first week of the outbreak, I watched the highway through my binoculars every day. That first night, it had been completely clear. But after that crash, it was littered with haphazardly abandoned cars and zombies wandering aimlessly. Without prey, the zombies moved extremely slowly. But at the slightest rustle, they'd awaken, bursting into speeds rivaling an adult man's sprint. Fortunately, they lacked intelligence, relying entirely on their senses to hunt. Good thing they had no brains and couldn't actively search for food.
All right, come eat.
Today is your birthday. Mom fried some eggs and made longevity noodles. I put the binoculars on the table. Staring at the bowl of noodles, I realized I was already 27. In this apocalypse, I was an adult capable of protecting my mother now. Seeing me not touching my chopsticks, Mom worriedly asked if it wasn't to my taste.
No, Mom.
I just feel like it wouldn't be so bad if things stayed like this. Silly girl. When all this is over, Mom will cook your favorite meat. The cave didn't have grid electricity. I hadn't bought any fresh meat, because even though the cave was temperate, meat would rot and stink within days. So aside from the pile of cured meat, we only had the live quails. After finishing my noodles, Mom lay down for a nap. I unpacked the drone that had been sitting unopened. It had been a week since the outbreak. I'd only seen the highway. I had no idea what the village or the woods looked like. Now that I had it set up, I'd use the bright moonlight tonight to sneak the drone out and check on the village. While Mom cooked dinner that night, I waited for dark, then immediately launched the drone. I flew it around the back cliff and down to the village. I didn't dare fly too close. But even so, under the moonlight, the absolute carnage in the village was shocking. On the village streets were the uncles and aunts Mom used to chat with, children who were just playing together days ago, and even toddlers. My God, isn't that Granny He's granddaughter? She's only 3, and that toddler is Auntie Shulian's granddaughter. Mom had quietly come over to watch the screen with me. Seeing the village, her eyes welled up with tears. There were probably no survivors left in the village. I flew the drone from the village entrance to the highway, then slowly brought it back, terrified of being spotted. After setting down the controller, I hugged my mom and whispered softly to comfort her. We can't save anyone, Mom. We're not saviors. As long as we're both safe, that's enough. A month into the outbreak, the radish sprouts I planted had grown to the length of a hand. To keep them from getting too tough, Mom pulled them all up and pickled them into unsalted sauerkraut. For the second batch, I planted my favorite bok choy. Once they grew, I'd harvest them for hot pot. On day 40 of the outbreak, the internet went down. Power and water must have followed. Luckily, we didn't use much electricity anyway. The solar panels had stored plenty of power. Our daily usage was just charging phones and tablets. So Mom and I could binge watch our shows. On day 80 of the outbreak, Mom and I were chatting and laughing over breakfast. The birds chirping nearby made the world feel peaceful, but a noise from the foot of the mountain froze the smiles on our faces. I dropped my chopsticks and ran to the entrance, pressing my ear against the stone wall to hear what was happening below. The consecutive noises threw both Mom and me into a panic. Man, is that gunfire? Your grandpa's hunting rifle used to sound like that. If there really were guns, were these people good or bad? I wasn't sure. This was the first time since the first day of the outbreak that I felt true, gripping fear. If those people were bad, our fate was obvious. Zombies had no intelligence, but humans did. The noise stopped, just as I thought they'd left. A megaphone blared from the foot of the mountain. We heard it perfectly clear from the cave. Hello, fellow villagers. We're soldiers from the nearby military district. We are under orders to clear out the zombies here. If there are any survivors, please grab your luggage and food and head to the bridge at the village entrance. The surrounding zombies have all been eliminated. Please come out safely. Mom was ecstatic when she heard it. She quickly told me to take down the stone wall, but something fell off. Let's wait and see. I had bought 3 drones. To observe them, I decided to sacrifice one. Just like before, I flew it out from the cliffside, over towards the highway,
To make it look like
it came from somewhere else. Since I considered this drone a goner, I wasn't afraid of it being spotted. I stealthily parked it on a roof at the intersection. From there, I could see the armed men perfectly. There were 10 of them in total. Each of them had a gun. They watched as people slowly trickled out of the village. Some of our neighbors were still alive. The family that always bullied us was there. Out of 6 people, Only the two elders came out. They were carrying some eggs and a bag of rice. The village chief's eldest son and his family were there too, along with a few other families, all clutching some food. Their eyes burned with the desire to be saved. But the leader just raised a hand, and the men beside him instantly snatched the supplies from their hands. I knew it was a trap. They weren't soldiers at all. They were just thugs taking advantage of the virus outbreak to run amok. Mom covered her mouth, watching the feed in horror. They were just out searching for food. The zombies hadn't been cleared out. If they were real soldiers, why would they make the survivors come out? After dealing with the people, they even went into the houses to loot everything they could carry. Everyone in the cars. Just as I felt relieved they hadn't noticed, and prepared to fly the drone back, once they left, the vehicles started up. Right then, the leader glanced straight at the drone. It was a subconscious glance, but I knew for sure he'd spotted it. For our safety, I decided to play along with my initial decoy plan. As soon as their cars pulled away, I piloted the drone straight toward a village near the highway exit. I could watch them from there with my binoculars. That man was too smart. I even pulled back our solar panels and water pipes. If they saw them and tracked us down, we'd be doomed. Sure enough, the modified vehicles soon rolled into the village, where I'd parked the drone. They used the exact same speech, but no one came out. Boss, that drone definitely belongs to someone here. Otherwise, why would no one come out? One of the lackeys said to him. I saw it all clearly through the video feed. They had an abnormal amount of ammo, maybe because it was next to the highway. This village clearly had more zombies than ours. But they weren't scared at all. Gunfire rang out continuously. Soon, several zombies lay dead on the ground. They yelled through the megaphone a few more times. But still, no one emerged. The leader spat on the ground, muttered something to the guy next to him, and the lackeys signaled everyone to mount up. The leader carefully scanned his surroundings. Before driving away, I left the drone sitting right there. I popped the batteries out of the controller and tossed it straight down out of the cave. Meanwhile, this group of people had essentially cleared out the local zombies for us. We enjoyed about a week of peace. During this time, there were no zombie howls. It felt almost like the time before the outbreak. But the highway was covered in corpses. If the wind blew right, we could catch a faint stench of rotting flesh. Stop looking, we're having chicken today. Yes, the king quails had hatched chicks. To celebrate, Mom slaughtered one for soup. The savory aroma made me put down my binoculars.
But while I
ran over to the dining table, a massive, dense horde of zombies emerged from the distant tunnel. Completely absorbed in my chicken soup, I was entirely unaware of the zombie tide outside. By the time I finished my soup and stood at the entrance for some fresh air, I only caught the very tail end of the horde. Entering the next tunnel, I hurriedly grabbed my binoculars to look. The highway was swarming with a sea of zombies. Many were pushed off the elevated highway by the sheer crowd and began wandering around below. The nearby villages that had been cleared were overrun again. There were even more of them than before. I observed them closely. Why did it feel like this new, mysterious batch of zombies was different from the local ones? Their agility was exceptionally high. Even when a bird chirped, they could pinpoint the exact direction. Were the zombies evolving? Mom, let's not stir-fry food for the next few days. Let's eat ready-to-eat meals. These zombies seemed to have much better hearing than before. By month 6 of the outbreak, winter was settling in. The zombies outside hadn't fed in a long time. Their movements grew sluggish. It was as if they were conserving energy, or their physical abilities were genuinely deteriorating. Some even started attacking other zombies to use them as food. I caught them doing it several times. It nauseated me so much I couldn't eat all day. It was disgusting. The last few months had been entirely safe here. Aside from that one group back then, no one else had shown up for half a year. 2 vehicles did appear on the highway, though. One was a regular SUV, the other a large truck. Once they exited the tunnels, they were either swarmed by zombies or blocked by the abandoned cars on the road. Ultimately, they all joined the zombie army. Brother June, it's right up here. A woman's voice suddenly echoed from outside. My heart rate spiked instantly. Why was there no warning? This is the peak. Why would anyone want to come up here? Countless questions and fears flooded my mind. Judging by the footsteps, there were about 7 or 8 of them. The voices drew closer. Damn it. If there's no land up here, I'll fucking kill you. A man cursed loudly. The voices sounded like they were right outside. I could sense them standing right at the cave entrance. Thank God the entrance was thoroughly overgrown with grass. They probably wouldn't notice it. But I was still terrified. I dug out the knife I had prepared back then. My hands were shaking as I stood at the cave entrance. And I glanced back at my mom, who was taking a nap. After a while, someone seemed to be coming down from the top of the mountain. Boss, there really is a plot of land up there. Even though there aren't many potatoes left, it's still enough to feed us for a long time. See, Brother June? They told us there was a field up here. That old lady from our village was assigned this plot. There's no way she wouldn't plant anything. It turned out they were out of food. That woman was from the same village. Judging by her voice, she seemed about my age. She was probably just trying to survive. Luckily, they didn't know there was a cave up here. Otherwise, my mom and I probably wouldn't have been able to escape either. About half an hour later, the group happily made their way down the mountain. I breathed a sigh of relief. The knife slipped from my hand and fell to the ground. The clatter woke my mom up. What's wrong? Man, why are you holding a knife? A group of people just came up here. I grabbed it for self-defense in case they found us. My mom was instantly wide awake and hurriedly started looking for something. Mom, they're already gone. It's fine. I stepped forward and stopped my anxious mother. The longer the apocalypse dragged on, the more people would run out of food. We would become increasingly unsafe. But for now, the rocks at the entrance were overgrown with weeds. It was our best protection. As long as we hid well, we definitely wouldn't be discovered.
Bang, bang, bang.
Sudden gunshots from outside
Startled both my mom and me.
I quickly pulled her aside to comfort her, then hurried over to the other side of the cave to pull all our things further inside. I was terrified someone would see signs of life here. Brother June, there are more and more zombies. What do we do? It was the group from earlier. They must have been spotted by a horde on their way down. But thinking about it carefully, something wasn't right. When they came up, there was no way the zombies wouldn't have noticed them. I paused at the cave entrance, wanting to see exactly how far away they were. The gunfire was continuous. Gradually, the low growls of the zombies also began to emerge. Zombies appearing on the mountain was very bad news for us.
Ah.
The woman's shrill screams seemed to make the zombies even more excited. Their frenzied shrieks echoed one after another. Damn it, Aeon, blow them up. About 10 seconds after the lead man spoke, a massive explosion roared outside.
Bombs.
These people actually had bombs. The fear in my heart surged again. What if these people ended up blowing up our shelter? I was terrified of being torn apart by zombies, but even more terrified of my elderly mother suffering that fate. I paced back and forth in the cave anxiously. There had to be a way. There had to be a way. The quails. Mom? Quick, go kill one of the quails. Man, what are you doing? I grabbed the drone while explaining my plan to her. I'm going to lure all the zombies from the bottom of the mountain over there. To travel light, they probably didn't bring too much ammo. Mom was a bit reluctant, but to survive, I had no other choice. The bombings outside grew more intense. A few went off right near our entrance. A few more blasts, and we'd be completely exposed. Mom killed the bird, and I tied it to the drone, flying it toward the nearby village. Sure enough, the zombies that had scattered last time were all wandering around the village. Smelling the long-lost scent of blood, their sluggish pace suddenly turned rapid. They followed the drone all the way to the mountaintop, and I finally got a clear look at that group's faces. I recognized the girl. She was the village chief's youngest daughter. She worked as a kindergarten teacher in town, pale-skinned and pretty. No wonder these guys were willing to bring her along. The man leading them had a scar across his face. He looked vicious and ruthless just from his appearance. Boss, there's a drone. Someone lured them up here, on purpose. A lackey yelled, pointing at my drone. When the scarred man turned to look at my drone, my heart dropped. His glare was terrifying.
Fuck.
Is this that bastard Shu Yao's doing? Just wait till I get back, I'll blow his base to pieces. Boss, we didn't bring enough bombs. We're almost out of bullets too. What do we do, boss? I'm running out too. The zombies kept multiplying. After spotting living humans, they swarmed them like starving wolves pouncing on prey. The outcome was entirely predictable, including that neighbor girl. They all ended up joining the ranks of the undead. The drone turned around and headed straight for the foot of the mountain, landing on top of a roof. Inside the cave, less than a minute later, terrifying screams began echoing from outside, one after another. mingled with the sound of zombies crunching on bones. Terrified, I turned to look at my equally frightened mother. But I had no choice. I wasn't a saint. I couldn't choose to save them at the cost of our own lives. For my mom and me to survive, I had to be the bad guy. That night, neither of us could fall asleep. The snarling of the zombies outside stripped away any trace of sleepiness. It felt like they could break in at any moment. In the middle of the night, I could even hear a strange hee-hee sound coming from the mountaintop. Zombies had never made that sound before. Why did that sound keep happening today? And it sounded like a woman. When I woke up, it was noon the next day. I had no idea how I finally managed to fall asleep. When I got out of bed, Mom had already made breakfast. By silent agreement, neither of us mentioned what happened yesterday. We pretended as if it had never happened at all. However, something much bigger soon happened. We were discovered. A drone was circling back and forth in front of our solar panels. It had a small basket tied underneath, and inside was a piece of paper. I didn't want to take it, but I was afraid that if I provoked whoever was controlling it, they would just charge up here with a group of people. I didn't know if the person was a man or a woman, or how many of them there were. So, after much hesitation, I decided to retrieve the note. Hello, I noticed you a long time ago. But don't worry. I have absolutely no intention of threatening you. There's a sick child on my end. He's had a fever for a week. I've searched all the pharmacies, but the medicine there has long since gone bad. If you have any fever reducers or cold medicine, could you spare a little? I promise I won't bother you again. What is it? Man, what does it say? Mom, go pack some cold medicine, fever reducers, and a few eggs for us to send over. I busied myself for 10 minutes, gathering enough medicine to last a week. I also gave 20 eggs, since our quails were multiplying. I didn't mind sparing the eggs. I just hoped this person would actually keep their word. The drone kept hovering at the cave entrance, waiting for me. After I placed everything into the basket, the drone flew away. I tried to see where it was heading, but this person clearly didn't want me to know their location. It intentionally circled around several times, before finally disappearing out of sight. For the next 3 days, I lived in constant fear. I was terrified that the person would bring a large group to rob us of our supplies and kick me and my elderly mother out. But 3 days passed, and he never showed up, which slowly made me believe what he had said. At night, I stood alone at the cave entrance, staring out into the pitch black. Buzz, that same drone from the other day, stopped in front of me once again. I panicked as the drone kept hovering right in front of me, until I noticed another note inside. I picked up the note, and underneath it lay a gun. The child is almost better. Thank you. My name is Chu Yao. I figured you probably aren't short on supplies. So take this gun as a token of my gratitude. My hands shook as I picked up the gun from the basket. I had never touched a firearm in my entire life. Holding one for the first time was surprisingly thrilling. I was about to go pull some fresh vegetables for him, since this gun was far more valuable than the medicine. But when I turned around, the drone was already gone. In the 10th month after the zombie outbreak, Mom and I bundled up in thick padded coats. A fire cracked in front of us. Fortunately, I had gathered all the firewood from Mom's fields back then. I had brought it inside exactly because I was afraid of the cold. I didn't expect it to actually come in so handy. Let's make some soup tonight. It'll help warm us up, Mom said. Oh right, the radishes I planted are ready to eat too. We can stew them with the chicken. In the past, I didn't even know how to dig dirt, but now I knew how to grow all sorts of fruits and vegetables. Probably because of the winter, the zombies outside, even when there were living people around, moved much more stiffly. Because of this, many people took advantage of the winter to scavenge for food, or even flee to their next destination. We still had a lot of rations left. 2 people couldn't eat that much anyway. With Mom inside, whenever the sun came out, she would drag the supplies bag by bag to the cave entrance to sun them and prevent bugs. We had our quails, quail eggs, as well as all sorts of fruits and vegetables. It was very safe here. We never thought about going out to find another safe place, nor would we risk going outside. Bundled in my thick coat, I went to the entrance, as usual, to check the situation outside. But things seemed to be getting even worse. Down in a certain village below, zombies were simultaneously gathering at the door of a single house. They were slowly but forcefully banging on the gate and walls. I adjusted the focus on my binoculars and saw there were 5 men, 2 women, and 3 children inside. They clearly hadn't gone outside. So, why had the zombies discovered them? As I was wondering about this, a sudden snarl came from the cave entrance. Mom, who was slaughtering a bird, and I both turned our heads at the same time. Looking over, I dropped my binoculars and ran over, pressing my ear against the wall, to listen to the noises outside. Zombies were surrounding us too. What was going on? What on earth was happening? Watching the number of zombies increase, we were temporarily safe, as the vines outside had long frozen into icy bars blocking the way. But once those frozen vines snapped, the cave entrance would be compromised very quickly. I hurriedly tried to think of a solution. Then I caught sight of the bird Mom had just killed. The warm blood and the half-plucked bird gave off a strong scent of blood. I managed to toss the bird and the blood out from the cave's other opening, and then dumped out the entire basin of hot water too. After doing all this, I continued to press against the rock,
Trying to peer through the crack at the top.
to gather information from outside. Gradually, the zombies all left the cave entrance. The zombies had begun a collective evolution. After 2 straight days of observation, I noticed that although the zombies moved slowly, their sense of smell was extraordinarily sharp. As long as there was even a hint of blood, they would follow the scent to find food. I used my binoculars to observe the people from the other day. Clearly, they had also discovered the issue of the zombie evolution. The zombies outside had not left their property. Everyone was inside the house, except for one young man in the yard, observing something unknown. I just saw him pacing back and forth in the courtyard. Occasionally, a woman would come out to call him, but after a while, she went back inside, and he remained in the yard. I put down my binoculars and walked further inside, looking at the plain vegetables on the table, and then at my mother's worried face. She must have been terrified. It had been almost a year, and we had never left the cave. And now, because of the zombie mutations, we were spending every day in constant fear and anxiety. Who knew how much longer we'd have to live like this? Mom, it's okay. There are still living people nearby. We aren't the only ones. Mom forced a smile in response to my words. While eating, to my surprise, the sound of breaking came from the highway. I quickly put down my bowl and chopsticks and ran over to look. On the highway, a modified armored vehicle was blocked by abandoned cars and couldn't move forward, and their appearance had attracted a massive horde of zombies attacking them. The leading man leaned halfway out of the vehicle's window, cocked his gun, and unleashed a barrage of bullets at the zombies. Even from this far away, I could hear their laughter and cheering. It was as if they had come here on purpose, just to kill these zombies for fun. Afterwards, the man got back inside, and the vehicle expertly reversed off the highway. A sense of dread began to fill my heart. That man inexplicably felt terrifying. With the zombies gradually evolving, people with guns could protect themselves. But what about ordinary folks like us? Right? The gun that person had gifted me last time. I hurried over to my bed and dug it out. Mimicking what I had seen on TV, I tried to open it to see how many bullets were inside. But I overlooked the fact that this was a real gun. I had a gun, but if those people ever found my place, fighting against such numbers wouldn't end well for me. Late at night, it started snowing heavily outside again. As if buried in the white snow, the zombies froze stiff in place, unable to move. This gave many people who wanted to escape a rare opportunity. From my window, seeing people on the highway wielding faint flashlights starting to appear, I was tempted. I wanted to leave too. But where could I run? Were there any survivor bases right now? Were those bases even safe? Even making it down the mountain safely was a massive question mark. I lay back down on my bed. However, I only managed to sleep for 3 hours. Waking up early in the morning, Mom had already boiled hot water and filled a bottle to warm my hands. Out of habit, I went to the entrance to observe that family of survivors. They were definitely still there yesterday. But this time, when I looked at their courtyard, it was already filled with wandering zombies. These particular zombies were nothing like the ones frozen stiff outside. They seemed capable of actively seeking out food. They went into every single room, and when they found no one, they came back out to search the next house. Thump, thump, thump. A slapping sound came from outside our cave. Startled, the binoculars slipped right out of my hands. I gestured for Mom to keep quiet and tiptoed over to the entrance. Thump, thump, thump. They were smashing against the rocks at the entrance. Only then did it hit me. These things hadn't been frozen solid, unable to walk. They themselves had already evolved With every heavy snowfall, they became sharper than before. Last time it was their sense of smell. This time it was their eyes. They could see now. That's why they were actively hunting for food. That's why they were smashing the frozen vines at the entrance. Because they wanted to see if there was a cave behind the vines. If there was anyone inside. Mom and I hurriedly hauled the remaining bags of rice and flour and piled them against the opening. Mother and daughter huddled together in terror. The gun sat right beside me.
If those things got inside,
I would fire without hesitation. Sure enough, it wasn't long before the vines were smashed open. But because I had blocked the entrance for so long, it looked like a solid, natural barricade. They just scratched at it a few times, and then left. Hearing the sounds of them departing, I instantly relaxed. But what terrified me more was the next heavy snowfall. What would they evolve into next? Would they be able to hear? If they could hear, would they realize we were in here? There were quite a few zombies near the cave. What would I do then? Man, what on earth are these things going to turn into? Mom was trembling all over. I feigned calmness and comforted her. Then I reminded her that for the time being, we needed to try our best not to speak. We would use our phones to type to each other. We also covered the quails with thick quilts in the back to prevent them from making noise. I also took the other side of the cave and blocked it off completely with things. I only left a tiny slit at the very bottom, so we could observe outside. From the outside, it was impossible to spot this crack. They could see now. If they found my place, that would be the deadliest scenario. Month 11 of the apocalypse. In order to survive, we hadn't eaten anything good in a long time. It hadn't snowed heavily since the last time, and the zombies hadn't undergone any further evolution. Many humans had fled past here along the way, but no matter how well they hid, they ultimately became part of the zombie army. The strange thing was, those who turned into zombies later were just mindless, scurrying about like idiots. Some child zombies would even be collectively devoured by the evolved zombies. 3 days later, a blizzard struck. The vast expanse of white made me worry again. This snow was much heavier than the previous 2 storms. In just under an hour, the ground lost every other color. The snow accumulation on the ground visually looked ankle-deep already. Even at night, I didn't dare to sleep, terrified that the zombies outside would make a move. Thump thump. I felt something bumping against the cliffside entrance. I gently lifted a corner of the barricade. It was the drone basket from before hanging below. There were things inside again. I didn't dare poke my head out to look directly, afraid of being spotted. I could only reach my hand out and grope inside the basket, finding a piece of paper and a plastic bag containing who knows what. The zombies evolve with heavy snow. These bullets are enough for self-defense. If necessary, you can use the walkie-talkie to call me. Do not make any noise. The zombie senses are several times sharper than a human's. I opened the bag. Inside was a pre-tuned walkie-talkie and a box of bullets. The box was about half full. It was enough for self-defense.
But why was he helping me?
And where exactly was this man? This snow fell for 3 whole days. The cars on the highway had long been buried, and the zombies, just like before, were covered in heavy snow, looking as if they had been frozen stiff right there. Both I and that man named Chu Yao knew very well that this was just a process prior to their evolution. Once they woke up, another batch of survivors would die in their jaws. Man, the snow is so heavy. Will those things freeze to death this time? Mom wrote a sentence and passed it over to me. I shook my head at her. Mom, who had a glimmer of hope in her eyes, instantly looked dejected again. It had been over a year, although we were still scraping by here. If the world was going to stay like this forever, were we going to have to live in this cave for the rest of our lives? No, it wouldn't be like this. I grabbed the pen and paper to comfort her, telling her to rest assured. The country will save us. We have to believe in our country. I gestured for Mom to go rest, while I continued lying on the ground observing outside. Ever since this entrance had been blocked as well, I had laid all the bedding from my bed down right here. When I got tired, I just slept right here. The solar panels couldn't absorb any power. Mom and I hadn't bathed in half a month either. We rarely even spoke. Every day we just ate steamed buns, bread, and drank water. We had survived day by day like this. Victory was fast approaching. We just needed to wait a bit longer. Someone would definitely come to rescue us.
Ah!
Overlapping screams rang out from outside. I tracked the source of the sound. It was 3 young girls. By the looks of it, they had probably escaped from a school in town, hoping to find their next hiding spot before the zombies started moving again. But they vastly underestimated the zombies. They didn't even know that the ones who turned into zombies first finished evolving first. Unfortunately, they ran into the very first batch of the infected. The snow stopped falling, but the sun was unusually white and blindingly glaring. This strange sun melted the snow rapidly. The zombies woke up. We had no idea what they had turned into this time. I didn't dare go look, afraid of being spotted. After sealing the cave entrance tightly, Mom and I just sat inside. Though we were seated, our hearts were filled with unease. I waited for a long time, but there was no movement outside. I found it very strange. The zombies brought up here by those people last time were not a small number. Logically, there should be dozens, or even more zombies outside the cave. Just as I thought that, a rustling sound came from outside. My heart instantly tightened. Although Mom didn't say a word, the palms of her hands gripping mine were covered in sweat. I gently patted her hand and mouthed silently, "It's okay." How could it be okay? I was scared to death. Is anyone there? Quick, save me. Right above us was our family's field. A woman's voice came from the field. It sounded very familiar. Seeing my expression, Mom wrote on the paper, "It's that girl who came to dig up potatoes last time." This shocked me even more. She didn't die?
Impossible.
As I was thinking, the voice had already moved down from the top. It was right nearby. I approached the cave entrance, wanting to hear more clearly. Listening closely, I could hear the zombies were still outside. Then, why wasn't this girl being bitten by them? Suddenly, a possibility crossed my mind that sent a chill down my spine.
It was horrifying.
Only a very small portion of zombies had evolved this time. They became like humans, able to hunt for prey by speaking. Or perhaps, she had been different from the other zombies from the very start. The night she died, she was the one making that hee-hee sound all night long. So over the past few days of evolution, she didn't show any changes, because she had evolved to mimic humans right from the beginning. What caused the zombies to evolve wasn't the heavy snow. It was the virus inside them altering human genetics. The snow was merely a catalyst. Too terrifying. I ran to the other entrance with my binoculars to look outside. All the zombies were circling the village. Some were climbing walls. Some were already cooperating to pry open a door together. It wasn't that only a few had evolved. This evolution, in terms of degree and direction for each zombie, was entirely different. The one outside our cave could talk, so she definitely couldn't climb walls like the others. The ones that could climb walls couldn't talk. If that was the case, didn't that mean we were in even more danger? There's someone in here, right? Save me. I'm begging you. Zombies are chasing me. Please save me. That woman's voice was right at the entrance. I turned my head in terror, quickly grabbed my gun, and rushed to Mom's side, shielding her behind me. We were both trembling uncontrollably from fear, but I still had to do my best to protect my mom. We didn't make a single sound, yet she begged for help outside for several solid hours. Over the next few consecutive days, I found that the ones who could talk, climb walls, or cooperate were indeed just a small minority. The rest were still stuck at the stage of just having enhanced hearing. And near the cave, the only one to successfully evolve was that girl.
She could talk
and use her voice to lure people. This made Mom and me even more cautious. If another snowstorm hit, who knew what they would turn into next? Would they be able to directly discover that we were hiding right in here? Would humanity end up completely wiped out until zombies ruled the entire world? I was too terrified to think any further. No, that wouldn't happen. I always believed in our country. In the 13th month of the outbreak, the weather returned to normal, and we welcomed the biggest piece of good news yet. We occasionally had cell reception. I received a message from my class monitor saying they had fled back to the country. The military was currently safe, and had begun a full-scale eradication of the zombies. But just as I finished typing out my reply, it failed to send because the signal was lost again. However, for us, it was already fantastic news. Our days finally had hope again. In the 14th month of the outbreak, the signal was restored. I refreshed my phone screen eagerly. The government issued a broadcast. Nationwide, 65% of the zombies have been eradicated. Eradication efforts will continue. We ask all survivors to remain in safe locations and await government rescue. We were in the countryside, so naturally, the rescue wouldn't be very quick. But this still made Mom and me hug each other in tears of joy. In the 15th month since the outbreak began, my walkie-talkie for the first time, broadcast the voice of that man on the other end. Wait for me in the cave. The zombies at the bottom of the mountain have all been cleared out. Unless I call you on the walkie-talkie, do not come out under any circumstances, even if the walkie-talkie isn't loud. Even the slightest noise carrying outside is enough to drive the zombies out there into an instant frenzy. Like they hadn't tasted fresh food in ages. They frantically smashed against the cave, and that girl who could talk had arrived. I knew there were people in here. Just save me. Let me in, please. I'm human. I'm human. Her voice grew increasingly maniacal. Her hee-hee-hee laughter made my hair stand on end. Watching the rocks at the entrance begin to shake, my heart tightened in my chest. I didn't dare go out. Mom and I could only push against the entrance with all our might to stop the rocks from giving way. Otherwise, I would truly die. Crack. As the sound of a falling rock echoed, gunshots rang out from outside. It wasn't just one person. It was many. Before the zombies could even lunge at them, they were already dead. 3 to 5 minutes later, Chu Yao's voice came through the walkie-talkie. It's safe now. Step back from the entrance. I'll open it up for you. 15 months. When the sunlight finally poured into the cave, a man stood at the entrance, looking at me. He held a gun in his hands and wore a military uniform. Hello, I am Chu Yao. The man walked in and first thanked me profusely, then gave me a salute. I was confused. He was a soldier. Why had he been nearby? Seeming to understand my unspoken question, Chu Yao had someone help Mom outside, while he reached out to support my arm. I was home on leave when the outbreak happened. There was a military base nearby, but even that base fell. Left with no choice, I hid in another cave on the other side for a long time, because I had a drone. I used it to have my comrades transport guns and ammo. My brother died trying to find medicine for his child, leaving behind my sister-in-law and nephew. That's why I had to disturb you that time. So that was what happened. When I came out and saw the zombies lying on the ground, I couldn't help but shudder in fear. Thankfully, Chu Yao was there. Otherwise, I would have been so scared I'd have slumped to the ground. What is your name? I looked up at Chu Yao.
Xuman.
All the way down the mountain, the zombies on the road had already been cleared out. In our village, only my family had survived. On the way to the hospital for a checkup, I sent a message to the class monitor to say I was safe and offered to treat him to a meal next time, but was rejected. Chu Yao, standing beside me, spoke up in a deep voice. I can treat you. I looked up at him. Our eyes met, and the man's face couldn't help but turn red. His subordinate nearby deliberately teased, when we got the mission. Our boss was the first to apply to be the mission leader for this area. Boss was probably worried no one else would be able to find his future wife here.
Chu Yao cao ghét lai ti.
And said to me with a straight face, for world peace.